As the honeymoon from the summer of love was wearing off in the late 1960s, many Bay Area musicians were moving north from San Francisco into easygoing Marin County. The influx of musicians inspired several new North Bay music venues, places like Lion's Share in San Anselmo and the Sleeping Lady in Fairfax had long runs and showcased great talent, while others opened and closed quickly. Although short-lived, the former Pepperland Ballroom in San Rafael is one of the most historically underrated music sites in the Bay Area.
I'd like to dedicate this next song to the memory of Jimi Hendrix.
Having hosted some of the biggest names of the post-1960s era, including dozens of artists who had played Woodstock, earning it the nickname Woodstock West. The specifics regarding the establishment of Pepperland remain as hazy as the air in the club itself. Nevertheless, in late 1969, work began to transition music performances from a club located at the Litchfield's Bermuda Palms Resort in San Rafael to a much larger building on the same lot. In January 1970, owner Whitney Litchfield announced a new venture based in one of his construction company's former storage quonsets. He had recently remodeled the building, hoping to host big-name bands, entertainers, special functions, and one-off events. He called the new music venture the Citadel. However, there is no record of any shows at this location under the Citadel name. In late 1969, Litchfield had agreed to lease the space to John Shaw and Larry Samuels as a concert and civic event space. Two fellow East Coasters, Benjamin Blatt and Nathan Schind, would operate the site. According to a July 1970 mention in Billboard magazine, 4 independent backers are providing the funds to open the Rock Ballroom, which will not compete for audiences with Bill Graham's Fillmore West in San Francisco, some 12 miles away. They didn't know it at the time, but Graham's Fillmore would close less than a year later, eliminating the competition altogether. A benefit for the San Francisco chapter of the Hells Angels was one of the first shows held at the new site. The bill featured Gold, Janis Joplin and her new band Main Squeeze, as well as Joplin's former band, Big Brother and the Holding Company. The event was a success, but intense, and was the scene of an infamous backstage fight between Janis Joplin and a mannerless biker over her bottle of Jim Beam. The event had a coat check and a weapons check. A month after the Hells Angels fundraiser, the venue began operations as Euphoria, with shows presented by Euphoric Entertainment. The first lineup under the new name was Ike and Tina Turner, Boz Scaggs, and A.B. Sky on June 27, 1970. Euphoria touted organic foods and good people, with performances by Big Brother and the Holding Company, the Grateful Dead, and the Youngbloods during its 3-month run from May to July 1970. Many local attendees recall Janis Joplin joining the Grateful Dead on July 16th and singing a sultry tune with Grateful Dead keyboardist Ron Pigpen McKernan. Most of this performance was taped on a bootleg recording that is still popular in the boot world and was captured just 3 months before Joplin's death in L.A. in October 1970. Euphoria closed for a remodel and rebranding at the end of July 1970, with the new club set to open on Labor Day weekend featuring Deep Purple. However, the gig never happened. A week later, on September 18, 1970, 721 East Francisco Boulevard officially opened as Pepperland. Pepperland was billed by promoters Ben Blatt and Nate Schind as the biggest ballroom on the West Coast and as Marin's first rock hall, both of which were not true. The building was painted a loud and locally controversial purple color as the reimagined club had an unapologetic Beatles' Yellow Submarine influence. The venue featured a quadraphonic sound system developed by Meyer Sound founder John Meyer, with giant molded fiberglass speaker cones, big enough for diehards to sit in, and many did. The September 18th opening night lineup included Captain Beefheart, Charles Lloyd, and San Francisco staples Hot Tuna. featuring 4 members of Jefferson Airplane who had just played Woodstock the year before. It also happened to be the day Jimi Hendrix died. Hendrix fan Steve Miller showed up at Pepperland unannounced that night and played a tribute.
I'd like to dedicate this next song to the memory of Jimi Hendrix.
Captured on a bootleg recording and later released in 2020 on Sailor Records as Peppa Sauce. Pepperland bills usually featured at least 3 artists, and shows often lasted until the wee hours of the morning. Monday nights were only $1, and most shows were all ages. From September 1970 until mid-1971, the performance space was enhanced by the Brotherhood of Light shows, led by Bob Pullum. Pullum had produced light shows for many notable San Francisco venues in the late 1960s, including the Avalon Ballroom and Bill Graham's Fillmore and Winterland ballrooms. Pullum came to Pepperland after the Fillmore West had closed. After a successful grand opening, the following weekend saw Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention perform. The set was recorded and later released in 2020 as part of the Mothers 1970 CD box set, commemorating the 50th anniversary of the 1970 Mothers. 2 weeks later, on October 16th and 17th, 1970, Pink Floyd performed 2 highly celebrated shows in Pepperland history. The venue's low stage was too small to accommodate the group's massive gear, which was largely set up on the dance floor. Pink Floyd's setup taxed the venue's power supply to 4 power failures during the group's opening song, ultimately taking the group nearly 20 minutes to complete. The entire performance can be heard on a 2-hour bootleg of the show, officially released in 1998 as a 2-CD set called Pepperland in the West. The last 4 months of 1970 earned Pepperland the moniker Woodstock West in more ways than one. Accusations of open and frequent drug use at the venue caught the attention of city leaders, and promoters Ben Blatt and Nate Schind were under constant pressure to toe the line from city officials, who accused them of catering to large crowds of underage dope smokers getting high. Meanwhile, memorable performances by Joan Baez, Hot Tuna, Incredible String Band, Leon Russell, and the Grateful Dead filled Pepperland with high schoolers, jammed together, sitting on the floor, smoking marijuana openly, giving all the accusations credibility. The Joan Baez shows on December 20th, 1970 were one of Pepperland's most successful events. Neither the cold December rain nor a bomb threat could keep people away from this heavily advertised performance, as the combined performances drew nearly 7,000 concertgoers. The next night, December 21st, was advertised on the Pepperland marquee as Acoustic Dead Jam, but it turned out to be an electrified Jerry Garcia and members of the Dead backing up David Crosby and numerous other Bay Area artists. Pepperland finished 1970, having been repainted from passionate purple, by hosting a New Year's Eve show with one of the hottest acts in music at that moment, Sly and the Family Stone. The Bay Area funk group was just a year out from their breakout performance at Woodstock. It was a fitting end to a year that saw many highs for Pepperland. "1971 would see a slew of great artists perform at Pepperland, coupled with a slew of problems leading to the club's ultimate demise. KSAN FM San Francisco recorded the Youngbloods live set on January 22nd, which was later remastered and released as a double CD live at Pepperland, California, 71. Taj Mahal, Tower of Power, John Lee Hooker, Sons of Champlin, Spencer Davis, and Steve Miller were just a few of the 50 different acts who performed at Pepperland during 1971. The creative side certainly attracted the best. However, the business end suffered from inconsistent scheduling and shows often losing money. In April 1971, after continued financial, legal, and political pressures became too much, Samuels, Blatt, and Schind skipped town. Pepperland would lie dormant for nearly 5 months. Pepperland held a grand reopening on the weekend of September 9, 10, and 11, 1971. Opening night was headlined by the Steve Miller Band and the former Sons of Champlin, alongside local groups including Clover. 2 weeks later, Mike Bloomfield, Stoneground, Mike Finnegan, and Clover performed a well-regarded two-night engagement. Fun Productions presented both events under promoter Skip Whitney. Whitney had managed to retain some of the original employees in the Brotherhood of Light show, but later promoters couldn't maintain what Whitney had continued. Even booking renowned artists Linda Ronstadt, Muddy Waters, Big Mama Thornton, and Van Morrison wasn't enough to save the club, as the venue presented just over a dozen shows in 1972 under other various promoters. The questionable activity of Blatt and Shin had soiled the reputation of Pepperland in the eyes of a vocal group of city officials. Heavy flooding in Marin County during January of 1973 caused some damage to Pepperland, ruining flooring and rugs. The club limped along before unceremoniously closing for good in early 1973. The original building, with its incredible overall and music history, still stands today at 721 East Francisco Boulevard in San Rafael, California.